Today, we make recording and mixing pro vocals in Pro Tools easy. Let's go. So if we haven't met, I'm Jordan Easler here with My Audio Academy. If you clicked on this video, more than likely, you're either slightly overwhelmed, confused, and if you were like me, probably somewhat intimidated by Pro Tools. And that is exactly why we made this video. My promise to you is to give you the tips, the tricks, and the foundational knowledge to make Pro Tools ridiculously simple. Let's get started by effectively setting up your Pro Tools session. Let's go. Point number one, which is going to be creating your session. This is probably what it's going to look like whenever you get your Pro Tools screen set up. So I've got create over here. Let's go ahead and name this the session. I personally like to just do the local storage. That's going to save it on your computer. But right now, we're not going to create from template, but after this video, after we create our template, you will eventually start creating this from your template. File type, we're going to go wave. Bit depth, we're going to go 24. Sample rate, we're going to go 48. And then we're just going to keep last used I/O settings. We are going to select interleaved. And I personally like to use a prompt for location. That way you're not risking losing all your Pro Tools sessions, trying to find them, you know, places where you don't even know where you saved them. And these settings, they're ultimately going to give you the best audio quality, and it's going to give you the best computer performance across the board. Now that we've got those settings selected, we're going to go to create, and now we've got our Pro Tools session pulled up. Now I already know where your mind's going. I know your Pro Tools session does not look like this. There's going to be some settings over here that is not showing on yours. We're going to go through that, I promise. Just trust me on that. This is honestly the portion of the training that I get 95% of my questions from beginner audio engineers. This is super important, and basically what we're doing is we are adjusting your Pro Tools to effectively communicate with your personal setup. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come up here to our setup window, and we are going to go to playback engine. And what we need to do here is we need to make sure that our interface is selected here. And this training, I am using a Universal Audio Thunderbolt. And just for the sake of the video, let's go ahead and click it. We'll go yes. The next things that we need to adjust is our buffer size. For the sake of time, we're not going to break this all the way down, but I think this is very important as you're just getting started. If you've ever been in a recording studio or you've ever tried to record yourself, and whenever you speak into the microphone, you hear yourself back and it's like a delay, more than likely the issue is going to be your buffer size is not selected appropriately. The way that you fix this, you want to adjust your buffer size. The sweet spot for me is going to be 256 or 128. I would probably select 128. The only time that I would go to 256 is if your computer is a little bit older and it's having a hard time keeping up with you recording and you start to notice that Pro Tools is crashing. That's when you may want to drop it down to 256. And then from here, you can just kind of copy my settings. And yeah, the next thing that I want to cover here is we're going to come right back up here to setup. But this time we're going to go to I/Os. What we're doing here is just making sure, once again, just kind of making sure that your computer and Pro Tools is operating with your interface appropriately. So whenever you press record, you actually have some kind of signal. What we're going to do is we're going to first go over here to our input tab. More than likely yours does not look like this, but that's okay. We're going to fix that. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here. We're here at input. Then we're going to click default. Unless you're using an Apollo Twin just like I am, yours isn't going to look like this. Yours is basically going to pull up whatever your audio interface's inputs are. So same thing goes with the output, and that's where we're going next. We're going to go to output, and then we're going to click default, and then we're going to go to bus, and here we're also going to click, you guessed it, default. Bam. Your Pro Tools screen still does not look like mine. So let's go ahead and go through exactly how I have mine set up. And the way that I've got my Pro Tools set up is for maximum effectiveness and efficiency whenever I'm recording vocals. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come up here to this little arrow right here, and we are going to make sure that these settings are selected. And this is giving you a lot of different options to where you can quickly maneuver Pro Tools as you start to get more and more adjusted and used to Pro Tools. So now that we've got that set up, the next thing that we're going to do is we need to adjust some things within our edit window. So yours is probably in shuffle. I normally keep mine in grid. The next thing that I want to do is you probably just want to go ahead and copy some of these settings that we have down here. I like to have my smart tool selected. How I got that is if you click a little bit above all three of these options, it'll highlight all of them. That way your cursor can do multiple things whenever you're editing different things in Pro Tools. The next thing that we're going to go to is going to be our counter window. I'm going to pull up bars and beats, and how I do that is by clicking this arrow. You know, the last thing here, this is not super important. It works for my workflow. I personally like to have quick punch selected, and I like to have loop selected. How I adjusted that was just right click and select. All right, this is not the fancy stuff, but I promise you, as we continue to go through here, whenever you click record, is really gonna be setting you up. So just a couple more things here. Stay locked in, and I promise you, you're gonna be glad that you did. The next thing that I'm gonna adjust here is over here. So what we need to do is we need to do, I like to have comments just in case, if I'm sending it off to another engineer. I think that's pretty neat. And then we're gonna go inserts A through E, inserts F through J, sends A through E. I personally like to have sends F through J, IO, and I like to have my track color for whenever I color code things. And just a very brief rundown of what's happening here within the inserts and the sends. Basically, your inserts are going to be your plugins. So, your EQs, your compressors, things like that. Your sends, that's a little bit more complex for the sake of this video, but if you want to check out the difference between, send tracks and aux tracks and things like that, I will link that video down in the description. I think that'll be super helpful as you start to learn Pro Tools to really understand what aux tracks are, send tracks are, and things like that. But I think that really kind of keys us up to diving into something that's probably a little bit more interesting, which is actually creating your recording template. We're gonna start adding some tracks to our session. So clearly, we can't do nothing with a click track. That's basically just gonna be our metronome. We could honestly go ahead and mute that. And then from here, what we need to do is we need to add some tracks. So how we're gonna do that, so we're gonna go up here and we're going to go to add new track and just kind of follow along with the things that I am adding. And we'll kind of start to walk through that as we go through the training. So we need one stereo master fader. We're gonna go over here and add another one. We need one stereo aux input, and this is going to be our vocal bus. We're gonna go 5 mono audio tracks, and this is gonna be where we're gonna do some stuff with our hooks. And then the next thing, we're gonna go 5 mono audio tracks, and this is gonna be where we start to work on the verse. And then from there, we're gonna go ahead and go to create, and bam, now we're starting to actually look like a recording session, right? So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go down here and label some things. So you can kind of follow along here. This is gonna be hook recording track. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to go ahead and color code some things. So for the vocal bus, I like to make mine red, some type of red. For my hooks, I like to make all of my hooks purple. So if you click here and hold down shift and click, you can now adjust all these at one time. So we're gonna make those purple. I like purple. And then we're gonna make this verse like a turquoise color. Color them however you want. These are my go-tos. So that looks a lot better, a lot easier to kind of follow along there. And just a quick tip here, this hook recording and what these recording tracks are doing, we do have some training and tutorials basically explaining exactly the reason why we have a hook recording track and a verse recording track. I'll pull that video up right now. It's a really cool trick or hack whenever you start recording your vocals that I think you'll really like. The next thing that we need to do is we actually need to update our audio tracks and aux tracks to the appropriate inputs and outputs, or IOs. The way that Pro Tools is set up is you're gonna have your inputs up here. This is gonna be the one on the top. Your outputs are gonna be the one down here, which is gonna be at the bottom. And we need to set up our inputs to the correct input on our interface. So I know that I've got my microphone plugged into input number 1 on my interface. So what we're gonna do here is on all of our audio tracks, so your hook recording all the way down to your verse ad-libs, we need to adjust all of these inputs. So now that we've got all of these selected, what we need to do is we need to hold down shift and option, and we need to click here, which is our input, and we need to go to interface and then select the appropriate input on our interface where a microphone is plugged into. So we're gonna go bam. You see how all of those changed right there? Now, whenever we click this, bam, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, we got signal. So we did it right. So now that we've got our inputs adjusted, there is a couple more things that we need to do, but I want to briefly, very briefly break down what this vocal bus is doing. So ultimately what we're gonna do with this vocal bus is we're going to take all of these audio files and we're going to send these out into one single vocal bus. Say you on all of your vocals, it's like, man, all of my vocals are dull. I need to add an EQ on there. Well, you don't want to go here and add your EQ on, 10 or 15 tracks and have to do it on every single one. You want to do it in one central location. If we throw this EQ on this vocal bus and we route all of our audio tracks out, right? So out here into a vocal bus, what happens is anything that is routed into this aux track or this vocal bus, whatever plugin or insert that I add, it affects everything that's routed to it. So if I add an EQ here, it's affecting all of these tracks that are routed into this vocal bus. So we need to set that up though. So the first thing that we need to do is we actually need to make an input. We're gonna go bus, and we're gonna go bus 1 and 2, but we're gonna rename it. So we're gonna right click here, rename, and we're gonna go vocal bus. So now we've got something to actually route things out into. So we need to route these out into the vocal bus. We've got all these selected again. We're gonna hold down Shift and Option. We're gonna go here to our output. Instead of going to interface like we did with the input, we're gonna go to bus. We're gonna select vocal bus. So now all of these tracks are now routed to the vocal bus. So whenever I turn this down, it turns all of my vocals down instead of having to go down here and adjust all of these settings. We ain't got time to do all that. Come on, man. The last thing that we're gonna do here is we're just gonna make sure that this is routed out into the same output as our master fader. And I think we're about ready to rock and roll. Down in the description, I have linked some of our recording templates. So some of these are free, some of them's paid. And ultimately what that's gonna do is you're gonna get access to some recording templates. It's already got pre-made plugins, you know, your EQs, your compressors, some reverb and stuff like that. That way you're not having to figure that out on your own. We've already kind of created that for you. But I know there's another group of you out there. I got to let you know about a brand new training that we just came out with, the Record Radio Ready Vocals training. It's a 60-minute in-depth training. Not only are you getting the video training, you're also getting some PDF guides, some templates, all kinds of other bonuses. So if you click the link down in the description, it's gonna be titled the Record Radio Ready Vocals course. So like you've seen in the beginning of the training, instead of just creating it from scratch like we did this time around, now you're gonna be able to create it from a template and you're gonna be able to shortcut all of this stuff. So how we're gonna do that is we're going to go to File, we're going to go to Save as Template, and the category, you could add your own category. You don't necessarily have to, but you could. For this, we're just gonna go YouTube training, and then you can title it, you know, whatever you want. Recording template. So now whenever you create your Pro Tools template, you're gonna be able to create it from your own personalized template. So we've made it. We're finally going to create your song. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to walk you through some basic things you need to know before you start recording those vocals. So the first thing you probably need to do whenever you are creating your song is importing your beat, right? You got to import your instrumental unless you're doing some acapella stuff. You just go to File, you're going to go to Import, you're going to go to Audio, and you're going to find the beat that you want to use. So we're going to go here, then we're going to go to Convert. Then we're gonna go to open one more time, and Pro Tools is gonna start rendering it and bringing it into your Pro Tools session. We're gonna click OK, and yeah, you've got your beat imported. So how do we actually start to record our vocals? So there's two parts. The first thing you need to do is you need to show Pro Tools which track you're looking to record on. Basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna come over here, and we're gonna record on our recording tracks. So we're gonna go bam, and that lets Pro Tools know, hey, I'm gonna be recording on this track. And then whenever you're ready to start recording, you're gonna go here, then you're gonna go here, up here, and you're gonna click play. In this video, you should be seeing it pop up right about now. This video is going to give you different tips and tricks on how to really maximize your recording sessions. And then last but not least, what we gotta do now is we've got to export our song. So say you've got all your recording done, we've gotta export our song in a certain way. So what we're gonna do is in Pro Tools, we're going to go to File, we're going to go to Bounce Mix. We are going to, you know, name it whatever we want to name it. These scenarios, I'm just going to export a MP3. You're going to make sure you've got the appropriate output selected. I normally just go output and select the output that I've got selected on my master fader here. And then I like to go 44.1. And we're just going to save it to our desktop. And we're going to go bounce. And then we're gonna go okay. Yes, sir. Now that we've got your session set up for maximum effectiveness and efficiency, I have to say that the next step to getting pro vocals in Pro Tools has got to be compression. This topic was easily the most confusing topic, but you know how we do. We're gonna do what we do, how we do it, and make it simple. Let's go. So what is compression? What does it do? Its goal is to reduce the dynamic range of your audio signal. Now, what is dynamic range? Basically, what dynamic range is is the difference between the loudest part of your audio signal and your quietest part of your audio signal. What a compressor is going to do is it's going to say, hey, we need this signal a little bit more consistent. So the first thing that I really want to break down is the threshold. What the threshold does is it's the setting that lets the compressor know where to engage. So as you see, whenever I play these vocals, yeah, girl, I wanna spin it. So with the signal being right here and the threshold being right here, it's saying, hey, once you get past me, you're about to get that work. Oh, that's when your compressor is going to start to engage. Anything that's below this point is not going to be affected by your compressor. Keys. If I bring my threshold down, that equals more compression. Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it. Now compared to if I bring it all the way up here like this. Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it together. Hardly any of that signal is gonna be getting through, so you're not gonna be seeing any kind of compression or hearing any kind of compression. Perfect T up there, which is our next setting that we're gonna be covering, the ratio. So let's explain exactly what this ratio is doing. So the ratio tells your compressor how much to compress after this signal gets through your threshold. What these numbers mean, this is a 1-to-1 ratio, and basically what it means is it says, hey, once the signal gets past the threshold, for every 1 decibel that gets through, specifically for a 1-to-1 ratio, for every 1 dB that gets through or decibel that gets through, we're going to bring it down to 1 decibel. Let's think about that. If 1 decibel gets through and it's brought down to 1 decibel, nothing's happening because it's already 1 decibel, right? But let's go to the extreme. Let's set it to a 100-to-1 ratio. So for every 100 dB of signal that gets through, that's going to be brought down to 1 dB. If we set it to a 1-to-1, spin it together. Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it. And the way that you can see if compression's happening is this meter right here. It's called your gain reduction meter. Let's go to the extreme. So for every 100 decibels it gets through, we're gonna bring it down to 1 decibel. So let's play it and kind of show you what happens. Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it together. Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it. So that is clearly an extreme example. Let's kind of walk through a common vocal setting. My sweet spot for your ratio is going to be a 2-to-1 up to about a 4-to-1 ratio to maintain a nice natural sounding compression. So that's simple, right? The next thing that I'm going to talk about is the attack and the release. So the attack and the release has an extreme impact on the sound of your compressor. So the two things that I want to point out about your attack time and your release time is number one, these settings similar to the ratio only impacts the signal that gets past your threshold. I want to make sure that's super clear. The second thing that I want to kind of bring up about the attack and release is they honestly do what they sound like. So your attack time tells your compressor how fast or slow your compressor latches on to the signal after it gets through this threshold. So generally the attack time is broken down into microseconds, which is the US symbol here, and then it goes up to milliseconds, which is the MS here. The microseconds is going to be faster and the milliseconds being a little bit slower. So as we dial this back like that, that means that we're going to have a slow attack time. Down here is going to mean that we're going to have a fast attack time. So as soon as it gets through the threshold, if we have it here, as soon as that signal comes through the threshold, it's getting grabbed and brought down. The reason why, especially for vocals, you want to typically have a medium attack time, it's saying, hey, we're going to let some of this signal get through here before we start to compress it. That way you can still keep the good things, but you can take away the things that you don't want and make sure that you're keeping that vocal nice and consistent, but you're not losing some of the frequencies and the tone that you do want to keep within your vocal. Nice. So we'll kind of set it really fast. Yeah, girl, I want to spin it together. Compared to if we bring it back. Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it together. So as you can tell, whenever I had the attack time down here, it just loses some of that energy. It loses some of the life. So that's basically what is happening here with your attack. So as soon as it gets through the threshold, your attack time is saying, hey, as soon as you get through here, we're attacking you, we're latching onto the signal, and we're bringing it down super fast. Or it's gonna say, hey, we're gonna let you kind of do what you do for a little bit, and then we're gonna attack. Then that leads us right into the release time. So basically what the release says, it says, hey, once the signal gets through the threshold, the attack time's latching onto it. Your release time is saying how long is this compressor going to latch on to the signal before it gets released back to its original volume. So fast release time, it's going to be automatically let right back up to the original volume. Now, if it's a slow release, it's going to say, I'm going to hold on to this signal for a little bit before I let it come back up. Just kind of go back and forth between a super fast release and a super slow release and see what's happening.
Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it together. Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it together.
And a common vocal setting for the release time for compression is typically going to be a medium to fast release. This allows your signal to get a touch of compression without overdoing it and making your vocals sound like it's pulsing or pumping. Let's go ahead and break down what this gain knob is going to be doing. Whenever you do start compressing your vocals, one of the things that is going to happen is you're clearly going to be losing a little bit of volume to your overall signal. So basically what this gain is going to be doing is going to say, hey, we need to get this volume back up to the original volume that we had coming in. So let's kind of see if we need to add some gain back here.
Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it together. Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it. Baby, can I pull up on you? Tell me what the code is. Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it.
Our compressor is not working extremely heavy on this specific example, but if you ended up having to compress your vocals pretty heavy, you're probably going to have to add a little bit more makeup gain back to your signal to get it back to the original volume level of your original signal. That's literally what the gain knob is doing. So basically what you got here with a knee is you're typically going to have a soft knee or a hard knee. That's a more common setting within most compressors. So basically what the knee does is it kind of tells your compressor, hey, how do I want to respond to the signal as that signal gets closer to the threshold. I typically don't even mess with that. I'll leave it as is and it gives me the sound that I want. Now what we need to do, we need to go back to our threshold and adjust it accordingly. My sweet spot for vocal compression is typically going to be anywhere from about 3 dB to 6 dB of compression. And we're just going to dial the threshold here.
Pull up on you, tell me what the code is. Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it together. Yeah, girl, I wanna spin it. Baby,
what we're trying to do here is we don't want to make anything super fancy. We're not EQing. We're not boosting anything. We're just wanting to get a nice, consistent vocal so that we can start to add that sauce, you know, within the EQ, within the reverb, with all that stuff as you start to actually start diving into mixing. So now that we understand the basics of vocal compression, it's time to cover another extremely important step to getting those vocals sounding like your favorite artist or favorite songs. And that step is EQ. Let's dive into how I use EQ and how you can quickly incorporate it into your own personal workflow. Let's go. Let's go ahead and dive into point number 1, which is listen and how to listen effectively. One of the first things that I'm obviously listening for is what is harsh and what sticks out. Another thing that I listen for is what is kind of getting in the way with the beat. And sometimes you may have to make some adjustments to your vocals for that vocal to cut through. The last thing that I'm listening for is what's something that I need to boost. And that's kind of the exact order that I'm listening for as I'm playing the track through. Let's play it and see what we got. Let's go.
Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again. Told him I got him if I had it on me. Me and my brother don't fight over. It's too many. Walking around with so many diseases.
The key to getting a great, rich, full industry sounding vocal, a lot of times that's going to come through effective subtractive EQ. So the first thing that I'm going to do on 100% of my vocals, if you got any experience with EQ and vocals, you know you want to add your high pass filter just to kind of take out some of that room noise. You just don't need it. So normally what I like to do here, I will be anywhere from about 70. And man, even sometimes I'll go up to about 95. It's very rare that I go up to 100. My sweet spot is always going to be, let's just go 80 here. And then another little hack that I like to do is some kind of low shelf. You want to select the shelf setting, which is going to be right here. Some people like to roll, you know, way up here, but for me, that just kind of loses the life of the vocal. I like to keep that stuff in there. But what I'm going to do to kind of tame some of these frequencies is I'm going to pull the shelf up to probably about 500. That's normally my sweet spot whenever I'm just kind of cleaning up some of this stuff. So let's play before.
Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again. Told him I got him if I had it on me. Me and my brother don't fight over. It's too many. Walking around with so many decisions. Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again. Told him I got him if I had it on me. Me and my brother don't fight over.
It's not doing a whole lot, but it is doing what it needs to do to make that vocal cut through that beat a little bit better. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is, this is a true hack tip trick, the boost then cut method. So I'm hearing some stuff probably in this range. I'm going to make a very narrow band. We're going to basically boost a lot. And the reason why we're going to do this is we're going to exaggerate these frequencies so that we can better hear the frequencies, so that we know exactly what we're going to be cutting. So we're going to boost and then we're going to scan. And whenever we find that frequency, it's going to be super piercing to our ears.
Ow, Charlie!
And that's how we're going to know that's the frequency that we need to cut. Cool, so this is what we came up with. All I did is I did exactly what we kind of talked through, the boost and then cut method for all of these frequencies. So what I'm gonna do real quick, I'm gonna play what we had before, and then as we're playing it, I'm gonna take this bypass off so that you can actually hear exactly what this EQ just did. So let's play it.
Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again. Told him I got him if I had it on me. Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again. Told him I got him if I had it on me. Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums.
So real quick, I'll kind of boost and kind of show you the frequencies that we ended up taking away here. We will go from the bottom to the top. We've obviously got, looks like it's about 190 hertz.
Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again. Told him I got him if I had it on me. Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again.
That's clearly piercing my ears. The other one that we hit was about 2K. Let's boost it.
Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again. Told him I got him if I had it on me.
Yeah, we got to get that thing gone.
Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again. Told him I got him if I.
And by you applying this boost and cut method and making sure that your bands are narrow and then just gradually adding it back in there until it sounds natural. A lot of times people may cut too much or that band's a little bit too wide. Then what ends up happening is the vocal starts to lose its life. And then let's see what we got. It looks like we had to cut a little bit at 3K.
Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again.
That is my methods on how I utilize subtractive EQ, and in my honest opinion, the most important part of EQing, period, to get those radio-ready vocals. I don't want to be anti you add an EQ, which leads us into point number 4, which is adding that sizzle, you know, adding a little bit of flavor on the top. But the first thing that I'm hearing, the thing that I think that we could definitely add to make it kind of fit in the record a little bit better, is adding a little bit of high end. So let's go ahead and add that. I'm going to boost it to where it sounds good, to where it feels good, and then I'm going to leave it.
Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again. Told him I got him if I had it on me.
And honestly, that 1 dB is kind of just adding a little bit. It's kind of helping that vocal cut through. Utilize these techniques, but apply it to your specific setup. If you've got a mic that's a little bit more dull, you may need to add a little bit more up here. You know, just kind of make sure that it feels right within your beat. And then the last thing that I hear, I think we could maybe add about 80 hertz. So if you want to add just kind of a little bit of beef to your vocal,
Spicy meat. Yeah, boy.
this 80 hertz kind of does it for me.
Me and my brother been trying to get out the slums again. Told him I got him if I had it on me.
Real quick tip. So whenever I boost, I normally boost wide, my band being a little bit more wide. And then whenever I cut, I like the band to be narrow. Let's go ahead and bypass these plugins to see exactly what we have accomplished.
Told him I got him if I had it on me. Me and my brother don't fight over. It's too many. Walking around with so many decisions.
And that makes a big difference and really sets you up to kind of start adding that sauce, you know, whether it be reverb, echoes, whatever the case may be. So now that leads us right into the last point, my vocal focus frequencies. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of give you the most common frequencies that I end up having to boost or cut in most of my vocals. Don't listen to this and say, oh, these are the only frequencies that I can cut, because that's not the case. But if you listen to it and say, hey, this is probably where most of the problems are going to be coming from, it's really going to streamline your learning, and you're going to be able to EQ your vocals a little bit faster. Let's break it down like this. So let's say your vocal is too bright or too airy. The frequency range is going to be anywhere from probably about 8K to up to anywhere from about 15K to 20K. What you can kind of start to do there is you can subtract. I'd probably start with about -2 dB and see what it does. If that's too much, you just kind of blend it back into taste to where you remove the frequency and you keep the life and the natural sound of your vocals. So let's say your vocals sound nasally. Some people have used the term honky. Shout out to my white folk, but the problem frequency that you're going to be adjusting there is going to be anywhere from about 700 hertz up to probably about 1.5K. And you want to dip it, probably going to do a narrow band, probably about there. And then you're going to blend that thing back in to make your vocal sound natural again. So let's say your vocals sound sharp or it's piercing my ear, like the vocal in this scenario did. You're going to be focusing in on 2.5K to about 5K. Find it, pull it down, add it back to taste. So let's say your vocals sound a little bit too muddy. There's too much low end in my vocal. Gonna make a low shelf. You're gonna bring it to, I would probably bring it all the way up to about 500 hertz. Duck it down, exaggerate it. Maybe start at, 4 dB. If that's not doing it, bring it down even more. And then adjust it to where it tames that frequency, but your vocal still stays consistent. The more reps you get doing this, the better you're gonna get, the better you're gonna be able to hear things. All right, so you're ready to add the sauce. You're ready to sprinkle a little flavor on your mix. If you don't know what I'm talking about reverb. Reverb is a key element to producing that industry sounding vocal. So if you don't know what reverb is, basically the way that I like to think about it is it's this space around your vocal or instrument, like this. Reverb. So let's go through how I use reverb the simple way and how you can master it fast. The key things that I want to kind of show you to make this training extremely digestible is above our vocal bus and our background vocal bus, we've got our reverbs. We have a send to our reverbs here on our vocal bus. If you don't know about sends, I do have a video that's extremely relevant and beneficial if you want to learn more about, sends and aux tracks and stuff like that. I'll link that in the video right now. That should be popping up. And then these reverbs are pulled up to an all EFX track, which is basically, if I want to turn down my overall reverb, I just personally like to have it on one aux track. So, say I'm playing back the mix and it's like, too much reverb, man, just dial that thing back. Dials all the reverb back. So that leads us right into point number 1, which is use multiple reverbs. What I've got pulled up here is a template that I'm using from my Record Radio Ready Vocals training, very recent training that I did for people just getting going in audio engineering within Pro Tools. If you want to access that, check out the link down in the description. If you don't have that, don't worry. We're going to walk through all these settings and all that stuff. You can emulate this within your personal workflow as well. Whenever you got multiple reverbs pulled up, you can just quickly dial in the vibe in a matter of, pulling up a couple faders on your sends and dialing it into taste. It's so much faster than pulling up your reverb and skimming through all the different, different reverb types, especially if you're in a recording session and the artist isn't really feeling, what he's hearing. You need to have these reverbs pulled up so you can quickly dial that thing in. You don't really have time to be sitting around. Focus on creating and locking in the vibe rather than trying to pull up 1,200 reverbs. Pull up one that works and dial that bad boy in. Do what sounds right. So let's go ahead and dive into concept number 2, which is the reverb breakdown. So this is going to be the part where you may want to pause it and screenshot these reverbs. So basically what we've got here with this plate reverb, plate preset, pull down the pre-delay, got just a little bit of decay time. So what this plate's going to be doing is going to be a little bit shorter reverb, just kind of adding a little bit of space there. This chamber is going to be the plate on steroids. What I've got is I've got the decay time turned up a little bit, got a little bit more pre-delay, a large plate. So this is going to be a little bit more spacious, if that's a term you want to use. Then I think we just kind of rolled off some of the low end with the chamber. And then with the hall, the stock reverb hall preset, just a little bit of pre-delay and a little bit more of a decay time here to kind of add a little bit more space. But let's walk through the cheat code on how to utilize these. So we're going to play a brief period of this song.
You know when you bad, they gon' try to flirt, but it don't bother me, cause I had you first. You be in your bag, all in your purse, but don't I make it better?
So we've obviously got all these reverbs turned all the way down. Whenever I play that back, kind of start thinking through like, what does my vocal need to kind of start feeling like it's a part of the song, like in the mix? What do we need to add to the vocal? Or on the other hand, if the vocal is a little bit too bright, and I'm assuming you've already kind of done some EQing, you may want to pull up like a darker reverb, insert your hall reverb. And what I would do is I would use some of these settings and just exaggerate these reverbs so you can really hear what each reverb is adding to the mix. That way you can appropriately say, hey, this mix definitely needs more hall reverb than a plate, or this specific track needs more chamber than a hall. This is going to make a lot more sense here in step number 3, because we're actually going to dial this in live. Hey, in the comments, I would love to hear your personal #1 struggle as an upcoming audio engineer, or if you're a recording artist and you're starting to record yourself, let me know down in the comments what your #1 struggle is, because I would love to address that in the upcoming videos. And if I use one of your topics, I'll give you a shout out too. Cool, let's go ahead and dive into actually using this technique. We're gonna play a portion of this track, and I'm just gonna kind of listen to like, hey, like what does my vocal need? And we'll get a final product knocked out here on the spot. Let's do it.
You know when you bad, they gon' try to flirt, but it don't bother me, cause I had you first. You be in your bag, all in your purse, but don't I make it better when they make it worse? You know when you bad, they gon' try to flirt, but it don't bother me, cause I had you first. You be in your bag, all in your purse, but don't I make it better when they make it worse? What's understood don't need to be explained. I found you, now I'm playing keyboard. You know when you bad, they gon' try to flirt, but it don't bother me, cause I had you first. You be in your bag, all in your purse, but don't I make it better when they make it worse? What's understood don't need to be explained. I found you, now I'm playing keyboard. I put my name on it, like a tattoo, baby. I put my name on it. You know when you bad, they gon' try to flirt, but it don't bother me, cause I had you first. You be in your bag, all in your purse, but don't I make it better when...
And hopefully what you're hearing right now, we're definitely not leaving the vocal like that, but hopefully what you're hearing right now is kind of what we were talking about, how the reverb adds different vibes to it. But let's go ahead and dial in the hall.
You know when you bad, they gon' try to flirt, but it don't bother me, cause I had you first. You be in your bag, all in your purse, but don't I make it better when they make it worse? What's understood don't need to be explained. I found you, now I'm playing keyboard. I put my name on it, like a tattoo, baby. I put my name on it.
To me, that sounds pretty solid. Say you just want a little bit more reverb. If you got your all EFX, man, just add a little bit of reverb, overall reverb. At this point, the best thing that you can do is to start applying it into your own workflow ASAP. Stop watching all the videos, just go apply it. That's the fastest way to learn, especially now that you've got the foundational tips and tricks and knowledge. Now, is there more to learn about audio engineering? Of course. That's exactly why we've created this channel, but these key concepts that we've covered today are really the key things that you need to know to get started recording and mixing those pro vocals in Pro Tools. So some final tips and recommendations as you're just getting started. Number 1, after you start applying some of this stuff, I would recommend checking out a few of the videos that we've linked down in the description. They go a little bit more in depth about some of the topics. These will continue to help propel your career forward as an engineer and give you a few different tips and tricks along the way. Another thing that we've linked down in the description is our brand new training, the Record Radio Ready Vocals Training, Pro Tools Edition. And this course is made specifically for the aspiring audio engineer just getting started in Pro Tools. Not only will you have access to a 60-minute long training, video training, we've also thrown in some pretty cool bonuses. One of the bonuses is our exclusive stock Pro Tools template to help you quickly incorporate some of the things that we talked about today. And we've also included some PDF guides to streamline your learning in Pro Tools. So hopefully at this point you are a lot more confident than you were before you clicked on the video. And I personally believe that you are well on your way to getting those pro vocals in Pro Tools. And if you haven't yet, I would recommend hitting that subscribe button, because we come with the heat all day. All hits, no misses. And I am getting out of here. We'll catch y'all soon. Peace.